Get away from her. Security. Somebody stop that kid before he kills my daughter. That was my father's voice. And that was the moment I knew I was dying. Everything after that felt like a blur of lights and noise. The kind of chaos you only see in hospital dramas until you realize it's your own heartbeat flatlining on the monitor. 16 of the world's best doctors surrounded my bed, shouting orders over the mechanical beeping that filled the room. My body wouldn't stop trembling. I could taste metal in the back of my throat. Through the blur, I saw a boy crash through the door. Security grabbed him instantly, wrestling him to the ground. His clothes were worn, his voice hoarse from screaming. Welcome back, family. How are you all doing today? Don't forget to support the community by subscribing, liking, and sharing. Your kind gesture towards the channel will make it grow stronger. Let's continue. The music box. It's killing her, he shouted, kicking against the polished floor as two guards pinned him down. My father, Arthur Williams, CEO of a billion-dollar pharmaceutical company, stood frozen. Fear, not authority, filled his eyes for the first time in my life. Behind him, the doctors kept arguing: genetic disorder, autoimmune failure, organ collapse. They didn't see the small brass music box sitting on my nightstand, still spinning, still playing that sweet, haunting melody. But the boy did. Later, I learned his name was Liam James, the Maid's son. 14 years old. Invisible, until the day he saved me. Lying there, too weak to speak, I watched as he fought to be heard. I didn't know who he was, and yet somehow, he knew what was killing me when 16 of the country's brightest minds couldn't see it. That was the day everything changed: my family, our legacy, even how I understood what it means to survive. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how a Maid's son became the only person who could save my life. For 13 years, I lived on a 47-acre estate in Charleston and never once saw Liam James. That's what privilege does. It makes people invisible. The Williams estate was a world within walls. Marble fountains, imported olive trees, a driveway long enough to lose cell service halfway through. Guests would call it breathtaking. I used to think so too. But if you step past the rose gardens and down a narrow brick path most people never noticed, you'd find another world entirely: the staff quarters. That's where Liam lived. 14 years old, son of our night shift maid, Lauren James. She was 35, a black woman who had worked 2 jobs before this one. The kind of woman who carried exhaustion in her shoulders but still said yes, ma'am, with grace. Every night before she left for work, she told her son, "Stay invisible, Liam. Stay quiet. Don't give them a reason to remember we exist." And he listened. He learned to walk without sound, to breathe quietly, to fade into corners no one looked twice at. His shoes were too small, his jacket thin from wear. While my room gleamed with Italian marble and gold fixtures, his smelled faintly of laundry, soap, and rain. The truth is, I never thought about people like him. I had private tutors, catered meals, and a life so insulated I could go years without knowing who changed my sheets. They were just there, like furniture, like air. If you've ever felt invisible or realized you've made someone else feel that way, this part of the story might sting a little. Stay with me. What happens next changed everything I thought I knew about the world. The day the music box arrived, Liam saw something I didn't. Something that would save my life. It came wrapped in cream-colored paper, tied with a satin ribbon, and accompanied by a note in elegant handwriting. For Emma, may this bring you joy. A friend of the family. My father said it was a restoration gift from a trusted dealer. A family heirloom finally returned. I didn't question it. I loved it instantly. The brass casing gleamed like sunlight caught in motion, every curve etched with tiny roses and initials I couldn't quite decipher. When I wound it, the melody filled my room with a haunting sweetness that felt both familiar and sad. I played it every night, leaving it on my nightstand as I fell asleep. What I didn't know was that the box wasn't just old, it was weaponized. Victoria Chun, my father's former business partner, had sent it as revenge. The brass hinges weren't pure. They were laced with arsenic, disguised to shine prettier, deadlier. Liam told me later what he'd seen. The head butler polishing the hinges with an old rag, the same one he used afterward to smooth the bed sheets where I slept. He'd remembered his grandmother's warning, passed through his mother. Some old brass isn't just brass, baby. He watched in silence, unsure, invisible. And while he hesitated, the poison began its work. Day 1, I felt fine. Day 2, tired. Day 3, trembling hands. Day 4, I collapsed. By the time I hit the garden floor that Thursday afternoon, arsenic had already reached my bloodstream. My organs were shutting down, and nobody, not my father, not the doctors, not even me, had any idea why. When I woke up, my bedroom didn't look like my bedroom anymore. The canopy bed and soft pink drapes were still there, but everything else had changed. Machines lined the walls, blinking and beeping. Tubes snaked from my arms. Cold wires stuck to my chest. I could hear the hum of oxygen, the shuffle of shoes, the quiet panic adults try to hide from children. My skin had turned a strange yellowish color. My breathing came shallow, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Sometimes my vision blurred so badly I couldn't tell who was standing over me. My father, Arthur Williams, spared no expense. Within hours, helicopters landed on the lawn, carrying specialists from Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, and half the Ivy League. 16 doctors in total. Neurologists, toxicologists, geneticists, infectious disease experts. Each one certain they'd be the one to save me. They drew blood, ran scans, whispered theories. Every test came back the same. Normal, inconclusive, unremarkable. The explanations shifted daily. Autoimmune disease, genetic mutation, viral infection, maybe even psychological stress. None of it fit. They treated me like a puzzle to solve. I tell people now, not a person dying. Every hour, I grew weaker. My hands trembled uncontrollably. I overheard phrases like liver failure and neurological deterioration drifting through the hallway. A Pulitzer-winning neurologist finally told my father I needed an emergency liver biopsy. My father gripped her hand and said, "Do whatever it takes. Save my daughter." I was 13 years old, and I knew I was dying. I could feel it in the heaviness of my limbs, in the way the world dimmed around me. And through it all, the music box still sat on my nightstand. Beautiful, silent until someone wounded, then filling the room with its deadly lullaby. Not one doctor asked where it came from. Not one considered that something as old and lovely as brass could kill. They searched for complex answers. I remember thinking, because complex problems justify expensive solutions. That's when Liam made his decision. While 16 doctors prepared to cut me open, a 14-year-old boy who mopped our floors decided to risk everything. Liam told me everything months later, when the chaos had finally quieted and I was strong enough to listen. He'd been standing in the servants' corridor that overlooked my room, hidden behind a half-closed supply closet door. From there, he could see the doctors unpacking the biopsy equipment, silver trays, sterile gloves, sharp instruments gleaming under fluorescent light. He knew they were about to cut into me, searching for something they'd never find. Down the hall, he could see his mother, Lauren, through the kitchen doorway. She'd finally found stable work after years of cleaning houses and sleeping in borrowed rooms. He told me that was what nearly stopped him, the thought of ruining everything she'd fought so hard to build. If he was wrong, they'd lose everything. If he was right and stayed silent, he'd be part of my death. He remembered his grandmother's stories. Factory workers in the 1960s polishing brass fixtures until their fingers burned, their skin yellowing, their hands trembling before their organs failed. Those symptoms matched mine exactly. And then he remembered her last words before she died from the same poison she'd warned them about. "Baby, when you know something's wrong and you stay quiet, you become part of the wrong." He said that line echoed in his head while he watched my monitor spike and then flatline for just a second. The doctors rushed to revive me. He felt his chest seize, his palms sweating against the cold glass of the window. He barely knew me. I tell people now. I'd walked past him 100 times without ever seeing his face. Never said hello. Never acknowledged he existed. And he was about to throw everything away to save me. Liam made a choice that most people would never make. He chose someone else's life over his own security. If that kind of courage still means something to you, if you believe stories like this deserve to be remembered, then stay with me. Because what happens next is why I'm alive today. He ran toward the main house, toward armed security, toward my father's rage, toward doctors who'd call him crazy. And he did it knowing he might lose everything. Liam chose the exact right moment, though he couldn't have planned it. The security system glitched during a shift change, and before anyone could react, he burst through my bedroom door. The room exploded into chaos. Machines shrieked, nurses shouted, and my father's voice thundered. "Who the hell is this? Get him out!" Security guards lunged forward, but Liam fought through them, shouting, "The music box! It's a music box! It's arsenic!" Dr. Rebecca Morrison, the Pulitzer-winning neurologist, snapped, "That's impossible. Arsenic poisoning presents with yellow skin, tremors, organ failure." Liam interrupted. "I know. That's what's happening right now." I remember his face through the haze, determined, terrified, but certain. He looked at me like I mattered. "Security," my father roared. "Remove this boy immediately." Liam grabbed the music box from my nightstand just as one of the guards tackled him. It slipped from his hands, hitting the marble floor with a sharp crack. The brass hinges scattered like shrapnel. Dr. James Chun, the youngest toxicologist in the room, bent down and picked up one of the fragments. His gloved fingers came away, dusted with a faint yellow residue. He froze. "Wait, everyone wait," he said quietly. He lifted a portable spectrometer from the equipment tray and scanned the fragment. The machine beeped, and the screen displayed two words that silenced the room: arsenic trioxide. My father's voice broke. That's not possible." Dr. Morrison ordered an immediate heavy metals panel. 20 minutes later, the results came back. My blood arsenic levels were 15 times the toxic threshold. 16 doctors, millions of dollars in equipment. And they missed the most obvious answer because they weren't trained to look for it. But a boy whose grandmother had survived factory poisoning knew exactly what he was seeing. When it was over, my father turned to Liam, shaken to his core, and asked the question that would haunt him for years. "How did you know what they couldn't see?" They started the chelation therapy within the hour. Clear fluids dripped into my veins, binding to the arsenic in my blood, carrying the poison out of my body molecule by molecule. Within 12 hours, the tremors began to fade. Within 48, the yellow tint left my skin. I was weak but alive. While I slept, my father launched an investigation. The antique dealer who'd sent the music box didn't exist. It traced back to a shell company, quietly funded by Victoria Chun, his former business partner. The same woman he'd forced out of Williams Pharmaceutical years earlier. Publicly humiliated, stripped of her shares, escorted out by security. Her revenge was methodical. Arsenic-laced brass, designed to shine brighter, to last longer, releasing toxins when warmed by touch or air. The butler's cloth spread the residue to my bedding and pillows. Every night I wound that music box, I was breathing in death disguised as a lullaby. When my father asked Liam how he knew, Liam's answer was simple. "Because my grandmother survived what your factories created, and your doctors never had to live through it." That sentence cracked something open in our house. My father's company had settled lawsuits decades earlier. Communities poisoned by factory runoff, workers dying from heavy metal exposure. People like Liam's grandmother. Their complaints have been dismissed as exaggerations from uneducated families. She died at 58 from organ failure, the same poison that nearly killed me. My family's wealth, I tell people now, was built on ignoring people like her. And her knowledge, dismissed for decades, saved my life. My father broke down that day. Guilt, shame, disbelief colliding all at once. Lauren James stood in the corner, bracing for punishment. Instead, my father knelt in front of Liam, his voice trembling. "Thank you. You saved my daughter when I couldn't." That was the day my father's worldview shattered. And honestly, mine did too. 3 months later, I stood behind a podium, a bank of cameras flashing in my face, my father on one side and Liam on the other. The world was watching as we announced the creation of the Emma Williams Foundation for Environmental Health, a $2 billion commitment to studying toxin exposure, funding free chelation therapy, and compensating the communities our wealth had once ignored. My father's voice trembled as he spoke. My daughter is alive because a 14-year-old boy knew what my money couldn't buy. The wisdom of people who've survived what we've ignored. Liam was introduced as the Foundation's youth director. His mother, Lauren James, became our community liaison director. Her salary quadrupled overnight. When it was my turn, my heart pounded, but I meant every word. Liam saved my life by refusing to stay invisible, I said. Now we're making sure nobody has to be invisible again. Beside the podium sat the shattered remains of the music box, now sealed inside a glass case. The inscription read, "To Liam James, who saw what privilege blinded us to." The audience was a mix of factory workers, environmental advocates, and journalists. They applauded as Victoria Chin's arrest was confirmed. Attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud. But the real story wasn't her crime. It was the mirror it held up to us. Williams Pharmaceutical began mandatory toxin screening in every facility. A $500 million settlement fund was approved. My father called it restitution. I called it overdue. People often ask if I'm angry at Victoria Chun. Honestly, I'm more angry at the system that made her revenge possible. We ignored those who suffered. She just used our own blindness as her weapon. Liam and I are partners now. Equals. I learn from him daily. He teaches me to see what I once overlooked. At the end of the ceremony, I handed him a key to the new Environmental Health Research Center built in his grandmother's old community. Its name, the Survivors Legacy Institute. But the real change wasn't the money or the foundation. It was what Liam taught me about seeing people. I'm 16 now. 3 years have passed since the day everything changed. I'm sitting at the foundation headquarters, finishing the story for a group of new interns, my friends, really. When I stop talking, the room is quiet. One of them finally asks, "And Liam still works with you?" I smile. Every day. He's studying environmental toxicology at MIT on a full scholarship, but he comes back every summer to run our youth programs. The foundation has grown beyond anything we imagined. 47 industrial communities now receive free toxin screenings and treatment. Over 12,000 workers have been compensated for historical exposure. Medical schools teach new protocols urging doctors to consider environmental factors. And in one of those courses, Liam's grandmother's factory journals, once dismissed as complaints, are required reading. Sometimes when I look back, I realize how blind I used to be. I thought having money meant having everything. I tell them. But I was dying in a room full of experts and had nothing. Liam had everything I needed. He just wasn't someone I'd been taught to see. He taught me that survival knowledge is expertise. That courage doesn't come from privilege. It comes from compassion. These days, I testify before Congress on environmental health. Liam and I partner with grassroots organizations across the country. He's my best friend. Not because he saved me or I saved him, but because he showed me what it means to choose courage over comfort. Lauren James leads our community initiatives now. My father has rebuilt his company around environmental remediation, and the world feels a little different. If Liam's story reminded you that everyone's voice matters, that survival knowledge is real expertise, then share it. The world needs more people willing to step out of the shadows, and more people willing to see them when they do. Just then, Liam walks into the room, sunlight behind him. I smile. "This is Liam James," I tell them. "He's the reason I'm alive. And he's the reason I finally understand what it means to really see people. I was dying, and a boy nobody saw saved my life. Now I spend every day making sure people like him are finally seen." Thank you for staying to the end. Trust the story captivate you, because the next one will captivate you even more. Support us by liking, subscribing, and sharing. Thank you.